Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority special meeting of the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 at 11 a.m. here at 340 North 11th Street in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'd like to ask Ms. Williams if she will help us out with the roll call in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law, please.
Thank you, sir. Chairman, Mr. Scott Black.
Here.
Vice Chair, Ms. Olivia Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner, Ms. Cheryl Davis. Commissioner, Ms. Sharon Davis.
Here.
Commissioner, Mr. William McCurdy II. Commissioner, Mr. Tick Sigerbloom. Would you wave your hand for me, Mr. Sigerbloom?
I can talk. I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, Mr. Dan Shaw. Thank you, sir. A quorum is present, and we are in compliance with Nevada Open Meeting Law.
Thank you so much, Ms. Williams. If you would all be so kind to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Now we'll go to item number 2 on our agenda, public comment. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters that are on the agenda today for discussion and possible action. If you wish to be heard on an agendized item, come to the speaker's podium, clearly state your name, address, and please spell your last name for the record. There will not be an additional opportunity afforded to the public to comment on each agenda item once called. The amount of time any speaker is allowed will be limited to 3 minutes. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of a presentation, this will be done by the chair or the board by majority vote. Are there any who would like to speak on posted agenda items? Can we provide a microphone to Ms. Turner, please? Thank you, Tommy.
Beatrice Turner. On the agenda item number 2, where you're going to be hiring a consultant. So I want to know, have that already been put out? The RFP been put out to hire a consultant? And what is the consultant for? Is it for trying to find an executive director or trying to get the housing authority in order?
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Those questions will be answered on that agenda item. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other individuals like to speak?
Yep,
Hello.
Hi, Madeline Rose, Marble Manor, Resident Council President, 914 West McWilliams Avenue. I was calling up here because according to the CFRs, that residents are supposed to be in participation in when you are bringing someone on as far as an executive director. We have an opinion and a voice in that, and I would like to know, and as well as make sure that you guys follow those CFRs to make sure that residents like ourselves and our board are there from the beginning stages of all of the above when you're bringing this individual in, because that is what is required, as well as what's fair to us, that we know who is that y'all are bringing in, because unfortunately we've seen the record that y'all have had bringing in someone for our best interest. So we would like to make sure that that is honored as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Any other comments on posted agenda items?
John Johnson. I just want to speak about 1 and 2. On 1, I just wanted to know, same thing with 2, is there a process? Do you guys already have it? Because the way I read it, it says consider and appoint. So it sounds like you guys are going to make a decision on who you guys are bringing in as the interim director, just the way I read it. So I wanted to know, is there a process? Are you guys going to, open it up for candidates? What is that going to look like? And then also, what are you guys going to do for actually finding the executive director permanently, and when you guys are going to put that on the agenda to start that process?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public. Oh, yes, sorry about that, Vanessa. Come on forward. My apologies. Good to see you, Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you, likewise.
Vanessa Hamlin, Jamestown Towers. Similar to the previous residents, I'm concerned about who is going to be the new acting director. And apparently, I'm under the impression that it's probably going to be a current employee that would be moved up to serve in the interim. And if so, are you all aware, as of today, what employees' names are on that list who you're considering to be acting director or interim director?
We'll be covering the details of your question in agenda item number 4. Those questions will be answered at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamlin.
Excuse me, I have one more thing, Madeline Rhodes, 914 West McWilliams. I was given the information that Miss Valerie Craig was going to be the one being appointed. And if Miss Valerie Craig also has those qualifications as well to be appointed. I know you said you're going to address it, but I know the name came to me, was given to me randomly, actually. And so I just want to know that if this individual also is going to go through the same trainings as well as have the same best interests for us as residents.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any other comments regarding posted agenda items for consideration and possible action today? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and go to item number 3, approval of the agenda with the inclusion of any emergency items and deletion of any items. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Diaz, a second by Commissioner Cheryl Davis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any in opposition, please state your name along with that opposition. Hearing none, that passes. Item number 4, discussion and possible action to consider and appoint an interim acting executive director in accordance with the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority bylaws and personal handbook, and for the board to take such action as it deems necessary and or appropriate. So a few of you asked a question relative to an acting position and a role, and what we're here to consider at this time is a board. As an agency, we must have by law and per the HUD requirements to have an executive director, a contract agent for our agency to conduct the day-to-day business of our operation. We, as a board, evaluated the personnel handbook, the bylaws, and looked at the organizational chart of our organization to consider individuals that would be put in a position to take on these additional responsibilities. And in conference with our HR manager, Ms. Fleming, discussing with Mr. Parker, our legal counsel, and again, reviewing these documents, the personnel handbook, the person that we have identified to be our acting or interim executive director is Mr. Fred Herron. Mr. Herron has been with the agency for approximately 29 years. He spent that time in his position in the finance department. One thing about our finance department during the time that I've been here at the agency is that we've had really successful audits. We are compliant in terms of the finances of our agency. And so I'd like to open it up to the board if there are any comments or questions relative to Mr. Fred Herron. If not, I would be prepared to make that motion. Any comments regarding Mr. Herron from the board? Mr. Segerblum? Yes, sir?
Chick Sagerville, I just want to say in my interactions with Fred, I think he's really been outstanding, very knowledgeable, very modest, and very forthright. So I would definitely support this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Segerblum. Well, at this time, I would like to move to appoint Mr. Fred Herron as the acting executive director of the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. And this will be in place until the agency executes a contract and or performs the task of hiring an agency to come in and contract the management services, or until we find a permanent executive director. That would be my motion. Is there a second?
So will that be open up to the public to comment?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Councilman Dan Shaw. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any in opposition?
They need to get rid of him. So is it open up to the public?
I stated, just so those of you that may not have heard at the beginning, Public comment was the opportunity to speak on posted agenda items per the Nevada open meeting law. The public is in this setting afforded 2 opportunities to speak, once at the beginning of the meeting for posted agenda items, and then again during the citizen participation portion of the meeting, where any matters or subjects can be brought to the board that are relevant to our scope of oversight for this agency. So those that have had the opportunity to speak on posted agenda items, that took place at the very first public comment. So that motion passes unanimously. Now we'll go to item number 5, discussion and possible action to consider and select an independent contractor to perform an evaluation of the agency and provide interim management services, and for the board to take such action as it deems necessary and or appropriate. So some of the questions that were asked during the public comment relative to posted agenda items were talking about the process. What type of process and what type of engagement will be afforded to residents, and how will we go about this process? And so what we're contemplating right now is, and I said at our last board meeting at the very end, that this agency has fantastic employees. I've been here for about 3.5 years. I've had the opportunity to meet with the employees, to see you in action, to learn a little bit about each of your departments, to be at all staff meetings, to speak at all staff meetings, to go to activities and outside team developing opportunities. And I've just been really impressed with the caliber of people that we have here. We have over 200 employees, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 240 full-time employees. And many of you have been here for decades, serving your community and helping move forward the need for affordable and public housing in our community. Any large organization also, regardless of the caliber of your employees, has issues and things that we can do and should do better. And so in terms of process, what this agenda item contemplates is, in the absence of an executive director, we now have an acting director, Mr. Fred Herron. We also need a long-range plan. And so this agenda item contemplates outsourcing for a contractor to do 2 things. 1, to perform an assessment of the agency, to do audits and evaluations of all the departments, just to learn what we're doing well and determine what things we can do differently, and perhaps bring in a perspective to enable us to make those changes to improve our agency. Secondarily, the contract would contemplate executive management services, meaning to contract an executive director that would also play that role for a fixed period of time of running the day-to-day, as well as overseeing the evaluation and assessment of our agency. And what that will enable us to do is to put ourselves on a firm foundation of a quality work environment, a great place for people to come to work and serve their community. It also will enable us to identify ways to improve the service to our residents that lean and rely upon us heavily for supportive services and affordable housing throughout Clark County and Southern Nevada. So I'll open it up to the board, but I'll read in for the record, discussion and possible action to consider and select an independent contractor to perform an evaluation of the agency and provide interim management services, and for the board to take such action as it deems necessary and or appropriate. Any comments from?
I'd like to also
Yes,
comment.
Vice Chair
Mr.
Diaz. Yes,
Chair.
ma'am.
Thank you. I think it's important that the community know that we have been listening to your comments, that we have been listening to your voice in this process that we're going through. And so one of the things that was brought to our attention was to potentially look outside and bring an agency that has the expertise in housing that can come and help us make things better. I want you to know that Chairman Black and myself do want services to improve for our residents. We do want a happy place, a safe place, a healthy environment for our employees. And we do want to be fiscally responsible to you all about how we're managing our funds, where we're going to invest them, and what we do to move the agency forward. And we need this very crucial, thorough analysis of our agency in order for us to be on that upward trajectory to help our residents have the best living situations that we can afford, the employees, so that they're happy serving our residents, because happy employees make happy people. And then lastly, that we know that our monies are going to be well invested in, again, our folks. So know that this decision has not been made lightly. We've been in constant consultation with HUD out of San Francisco. This decision is not being made in a vacuum. We have thoroughly vetted it, we have thoroughly analyzed it, and we really do believe this is the best move forward to afford us a really comprehensive dive into our agency, but also giving us the time to get that input and to get the process of what the next executive director should be coming in. So I think it plays many, many benefits to us moving forward, and I look forward to supporting this item, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diaz. I just wanted to make a quick comment relative to what Councilwoman Diaz said in terms of the process. There was a question asked during the public comment that was not answered relative to process. So in ordinary circumstances, the CFR 200 oversees the procurement process by which we follow. I'm not a procurement expert. Mr. Johnny Shaw is. He's our procurement manager. However, under certain circumstances, you have two levels of law and or requirements that need to be satisfied. You have the Nevada revised statutes that oversees the public housing authority within within Nevada. Then you also have the HUD regulations that oversee. And of course, the most stringent of the two is the ones that you default to in terms of compliance. So in the state of Nevada, NRS 332.115(1)B states that professional services or very specialized services can be procured through a non-competitive process. That has taken place in many cases, as recently in the city of Henderson, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Shaw, for their city clerk's office. They had an emergency and they had to procure without going through the traditional process to put someone in place to run their city clerk's office. In the city of North Las Vegas, we've done that over the last 2 years, dealing with opening up our community correction center. We hired a consultant through the professional services non-competitive exemption to help us do that successfully, and we did. We also did that for our current HR director for the last 9 months. We did so through a professional services procurement exemption. So the NRS contemplates what we're doing, but the HUD CFR is the higher law or the more stringent law in the case here, where it does require, even for professional services, a procurement process to be followed. But there is an exception available within the HUD CFRs that allows for a non-competitive procurement justification based on circumstances such as an emergency or conditions that necessitate an emergency or an exemption. So working with the office in San Francisco and HUD, the process is the non-competitive justification application, an independent cost estimate, competitive price analysis, and all of those things have been submitted to HUD, and HUD has granted the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority via a letter the permission to do a non-competitive professional services justification on which we are presenting to the board today. So that answers the process. And this is a contract agreement or arrangement that Ms. Diaz spoke about, which is an opportunity to just take pause, take a look. What are we doing well? What can we do better? What can we do more with the limited and finite resources? And HUD is our funding agency. They give us, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Herron, but well over $130 million a year. What's that annual allotment from HUD?
It's about 160,000.
Well, 160 million? 160 million a year to provide affordable housing services to Southern Nevada. That's a lot of money. That is our funding agency, and they are fully aware and on board and supportive of what we're contemplating today. So with that, if there are any other comments or questions from the board? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Davis.
I just want to say, for the record, is that when Commissioner Diaz spoke, she made it seem that her and the chair were involved in this only, but honestly, it's the whole board. So I'm going to speak for the whole board because we are all concerned, and of course, they already know my concerns. But I also want to just make a comment on this here, as Ms. Madeline Rose spoke. I think we need to educate ourselves in this because I think we're leaving out the residents, and this is one of the foundations for the residents to be a part of this. So I think we really do need to educate ourselves on what the responsibilities of the residents, because I think we're overlooking them and we're leaving them out. So that may be something that we really need to do as a board.
I agree with you fully, and as we go forward with the process of evaluation, I heard Madeline Rose say very clearly that, and I agree, that there needs to be engagement with the residents as we look forward to selecting a long-term permanent executive director, and that's been noted, and that is a critical component to the process. I believe it absolutely is. That's not what we're contemplating today. This is a short-term contractual arrangement that we're contemplating today. And I know that that will be part of the conversation going forward as well in the short run, but in the long run, when we get to a point where we look inward and look outward for a candidate to be the ideal individual to help lead our agency into the future, that will be a component that will not be left out. Absolutely. Commissioner McCurdy, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I totally rise in support of this organizational review, if you will. It's incredibly important that we actually know what's happening within the organization, how it's functioning. And as we know, there is going to be a shift towards improving public housing services and the like. So after we get this review, I also think that it's going to be imperative that we establish some type of, advisory committee that helps to select the next executive director. The residents must have an input on who that will be, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones who are going to be impacted by who this executive director is. I am glad we went with Mr. Herron over here, as well as we have an organization that is represented by a collective bargaining agreement. So we must also have the employees in mind as we shift towards looking at improving this organization, because it is imperative that we are running like a well-oiled machine, because once things start flowing from the feds down, we have to be prepared wholly to receive those resources and then have those resources be directed to the constituents. So I am in support, and I am glad that this is happening, because we know where we've gone, we know where we've been, and we got to see where we're going in the future. So I'm totally in support of this.
I really appreciate the really relevant comments from Commissioner Cheryl Davis and Commissioner McCurdy. When we have this process down the road and we formulate, and again, that's not what we're contemplating today, but when we get to the point of looking for a permanent director, there were 4 seats at that table the last time around, and I sat in one of those. There will be more seats at the table for the next round, and that will include collective bargaining as well as representation from the residents, because without doing that, we're amiss, and we're missing a big voice and a relevant voice to the total overall mission that we're trying to achieve here. So thank you so much for that. Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion if that's the will of the board.
Okay.
I'd move to authorize the board leadership to negotiate a suitable contract not to exceed $335,000 with a firm to perform an agency-wide evaluation for us and provide interim executive management services while we look to have a permanent director. That would be my motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion by Councilman Dan Shaw, second by Commissioner McCurdy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any in opposition, please state your name along with the opposition. Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you so much. We'll go now to citizen participation. Items raised under this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated on, meaning it's one-directional communication. We'll be taking notes and writing things down, but we will not deliberate the concern or thought that's brought before you. If you wish to speak on matters not listed on the posted agenda, please step to the podium and clearly state your name and address, and please spell your last name for the record. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of a presentation, this will be done by the chair or by board majority vote. All comments by speakers should be relevant to the Board of Commissioners of the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. I'll open it up for citizen participation at this time. Ms. Turner.
Beatrice Turner. Like the lady Madeline said, the residents need to play a part in selecting the next executive director, because they didn't play a part in selecting this one that just done left. And then we don't know where's the deputy, where is he at? Is he still working here? What part is he gonna be doing at the housing authority that's being kept hush-hush and ain't nobody saying nothing? And the last thing I got to say to you, Mr. Black, you need to Google it and see. You know, I've sat back and I've tried to be patient. And I have been looking around for an attorney to represent as a class action lawsuit for the residents on the housing authority. But we're not gonna only do the housing authority, we're gonna do HUD too. Because HUD have sit back and let this agency just go downhill. So if this man tell me that he can do the class action to represent, to do the lawsuit. That's the next process and the last process that I will be doing.
Any other individuals like to speak during citizen participation at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Sharina Thomas.
Hi, Ms. Thomas.
Hi. Unfortunately, I don't have an address at this time, but I just wanted to speak to the board today because I haven't had any response from you guys, unfortunately, regarding my situation. And I've been told I can go on back home to St. Louis, but haven't been given any direction on how I'm gonna get there. So there's still some matters that, need to be addressed or what have you. And I'm just like in limbo. I've been in 2 Airbnbs and a hotel in the past 10 days. And I'm about losing it because it ain't that much Lysol out here. And, I'm just ready to go and get back home. And, I need some direction from you guys, some communication.
Mr. Parker, are you able to speak? Yes, sir. Mr. McCurdy. Yes, please.
Yeah, I can't speak to the situation that you had before, but if you are trying to get to another location or if you are without home, there are some resources that the county provide to help you find a remedy to that. So if you could hang around, we'll get your name, number, and information, and we'll see if we can get you some help.
Okay, cool, thanks.
And there also has been communication from Ms. Thomas to our legal counsel. So, Mr. Parker, will you stick around as well for a moment afterwards?
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Ms.
thanks
Thomas.
so much.
Any others that would like to speak during public comment?
Madeline Rose, 914 McWilliams. Just to make sure that I'm bringing forward the actual numbers in the CFR, which is the CFR 964.130. And if you actually jump down to 964.135, resident involvement and HA management operations. Residents shall be involved and participate in the overall policy development and direction of public housing operations. Resident management corporations may contract with housing authority to perform one or more management functions provided the resident entity is received sufficient training or has staff with the necessary expertise to perform the management functions, and provided the RMC meets bonding and licensing requirements. Residents shall be actively involved in housing authority's decision-making process, give advice on matters such as modernization, security, maintenance, resident screening, and selection and recreation. Housing authority has responsibility for management operations. It shall ensure strong resident participation in all issues and facets of its operations through the duly elected resident council at public housing developments and with jurisdiction-wide resident councils. I'm saying all of this to say that we deserve and are supposed to be at the table from the beginning, middle, and end, as well as the duration, as long as public housing is in existence. We are supposed to be at every turn, down to the breakdown, down to the development, down to the everything. So therefore, we're supposed to be there at everything that is going forward. So I heavily suggest that you guys reach out to the resident council boards that are actively moving along and would like to explore how they can vocalize their voice for those who need it.
You've made some very wonderful points today. They've been noted. And one thing I will say, though, is we have the good fortune on this board of being comprised of 5 elected officials and 4 resident commissioners that represent City of Las Vegas, City of North Las Vegas, Clark County, and Henderson. Currently, we have 2 vacancies. We have the wonderful Cheryl Davis from Clark County. We have Sharon Davis from Henderson. And we will be onboarding an individual that has been provided to the City of North Las Vegas from supportive services through an outreach process. We narrowed it down. We interviewed 5 wonderful people for North Las Vegas, and we'll be presenting that individual. If you want to see who it is, they were approved unanimously at last City Council meeting, and also that's taking place as well from the City of Las Vegas. So we will have a full board at this next meeting. At a minimum, the following meeting, they will be onboarded, and there will be complete representation from each jurisdiction by virtue of a resident commissioner. So thank you for that. Any other comments for the board? Hearing none, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for taking your time to join us this morning.